Saltwater Orchard, Chapter 25, Ryan and Richard. "What are you doing? This is crazy," Ryan whispered to herself in the mirror. Well, it might be crazier to be talking to herself like this. How could she have let Erica leave without double checking her bag or making sure she had snacks or doing any of the things she always did before letting her daughter be anywhere without her? She knew it was too late to change anything now. It would upset her daughter if she went after her. She knew Abigail could handle it. After all, she'd helped Ryan out often enough over the last few weeks. She understood what to watch for and how to help the little girl navigate her diet and blood sugar. For once, she was going to put her trust in her friends. Her pulse gave a couple of quick beats at the thought. Blowing out a deep breath, she looked herself in the eye in the mirror and said, "You can do this, and you will." And Richard. She'd realized from watching Erica over the last few weeks that she needed to live her life. She prayed she was on the path God had for her, and she wasn't being foolish and letting her emotions rule. She also needed to stop hiding in her bedroom and go downstairs to see what Richard wanted. He'd gone to a lot of effort for her, something no one had ever done before, not even Eric. Over the last few weeks of working side by side with Richard, she realized how much she enjoyed his company. She looked forward to the days she could be on the farm. She realized she was happy, happier than she'd been in a very long time. "Here goes nothing," she mumbled under her breath before opening the door. Slowly walking toward the stairs, she knew she was dawdling, but she couldn't make herself move faster. She didn't know what he had in mind, and something was holding her back. "Give me courage, Lord. It's time to live my life. Help me make the right choices tonight, no matter what happens." She gave a short laugh under her breath at her foolishness. If anyone heard her, they would think she was going into battle. Maybe she was. A battle for her heart, and she still wasn't sure what she wanted the outcome to be. As she hit the last step, she heard a throat clearing and lifted her head. Richard was standing across the room, clearly waiting for her. "You look—" He stopped and cleared his throat again. "You look beautiful." His voice came out sounding rough and made the butterflies in her stomach take flight. She felt her face coloring at his intense gaze. She managed to squeeze out a quiet, "Thank you." As she started toward him, she told herself to stop acting weird. This was Richard, little Ricky, her longtime friend. Even as the thought entered her mind, she knew he was more than that to her now. And in that moment, her toe caught the edge of the throw rug near the door. She stumbled forward. His powerful arms caught her, steadying her on her feet. "Are you okay?" He held her as she stood. "Yeah, I'm just a klutz." Her face colored even more. She had practically thrown herself into his arms. Ryan felt his grip tighten, and she looked up. Swallowing hard, the rest of her thoughts fled as Richard leaned down and brushed a soft kiss on her lips. "Good. Now come on. I have something to show you." Smiling, he brushed his fingers down her arm until he found her hand. Weaving their fingers together, he gave a squeeze. She smiled as she followed him out the door. Twilight was here. The dim light was just enough to see the steps as they made their way down the porch. As they walked past the vehicles in the yard, he didn't slow. That was odd. She thought they were going to Ellsworth or somewhere for dinner. She asked, "Where are we going?" He gave her one of his heart-stopping smiles as he said, "Trust me, it's not much further." He glanced at her feet. "Are you okay to keep walking in those, or should we go back for you to change?" She looked down at her feet. She had on a pair of sandals. "Depends on how much farther we're going. If we're going for a hike, I might want to change and put on boots." She raised an eyebrow at him. His laugh filled the night, and she joined in. She didn't know why he was laughing, but the joy in it was contagious. "No, we're not going for a hike, just to the orchard." He tugged her hand, and Ryan followed. As they came around the end of the barn, the apple orchard opened before them. Every tree was covered in white lights, softly glowing. "Oh!" She stopped, a hand going to her chest. "It's beautiful." "There's more." Richard gently tugged on her hand, and they made their way down a row of trees. After only a few feet, he stopped and turned. "This is the surprise." Stepping back, he swept an arm, presenting the scene before them. A few years ago, someone had removed some trees from the center of the orchard and never replaced them. This had created an open space, which now housed a round table with 2 chairs. 2 patio heaters sat nearby, their flames turned low. The table itself was covered in a white tablecloth and featured a large vase of red roses in the center. Each chair had a covered plate in front of it, and a bottle of sparkling apple cider with 2 long-stem glasses sat on the table. "Richard, this is beautiful." Raising her hand, he brushed a kiss across the back. Smiling, he said, "Let's eat before the food gets cold." She felt the butterflies in her stomach fluttering madly. She smiled as he escorted her to her seat. He pulled a chair out for her to sit. She worked to quell the thoughts that were trying to bubble up, telling her this was too good to be true. Her thoughts were not going to ruin this evening. Tomorrow would be soon enough, and she could worry about it all then. In fact, she was pretty sure Jesus said just that somewhere in the Bible. For now, she was going to enjoy it. He leaned in from behind her and lifted the cover off the plate in front of her with a flourish. She inhaled, taking in the delicious smells. Clearing his throat, Richard straightened and intoned in a stuffy voice, "For tonight's entree, we have grilled lobster tail in garlic butter, with a side of crispy roasted fingerling potatoes and grilled asparagus in lemon zest. For drinks, we have water or sparkling apple cider. What would you prefer, madam?" He raised an eyebrow at her while he waited for her reply. Wiping the smile off her face, Ryan answered in a formal tone of voice, "I will have the sparkling apple cider, good sir." "Ah, good choice." He opened the bottle sitting on the table and poured some of the liquid into each glass. Taking his seat, he then removed the cover from his own plate before asking, "May I pray?" She hid her surprise. She hadn't known him to ask before. Of course. He reached a hand across the table and took hers. "Lord, thank you for friends who helped this bachelor impress a lovely woman." He squeezed her hand, and she couldn't help the giggle that escaped. "Be with us tonight as we enjoy each other's company. Help us see your will in all we do. In Jesus' name, amen." Amen. There was something different about him tonight, and Ryan was sure her heart was in danger of being completely lost before the night was over, and part of her was hoping for just that. Richard wanted this night to last forever, yet he also couldn't wait for her to finish her dessert. His nerves were about to do him in. She had already taken off on him once before when things got a little too serious, and he was about to make them even more serious than ever before. She laid her fork on the table, wiped her mouth, and placed her napkin on her plate. "That was the most delicious thing I've eaten in months. Who made it?" He held a hand to his chest, mouth open in mock surprise. "I'm wounded that you think I didn't make it." He smiled as her laughter filled the air. He couldn't wait to spend the rest of his life making her laugh just like this. "Considering you've practically begged me to do your cooking for you, it wasn't much of a stretch." She raised an eyebrow at him as she finished her glass of apple cider. "But did you make that?" She pointed to her glass. "Because that was delicious." "Well, my uncle did. I found a few bottles put away in the cellar when I was down there last week. I've been saving them for a special occasion. This seemed to qualify." "Oh?" Richard swallowed. He hadn't meant to say anything yet. He needed to execute the next part of his plan first. Pushing back his chair, he rose and moved towards Ryan as he said, "How about we go for a walk, and I'll explain how I whipped up those grilled lobster tails and the asparagus, and if you can tell me the first step to making the asparagus, I'll believe you. Otherwise, spill." He laughed as he helped her from her chair. "Fine. I'm busted." Abigail helped, and her sisters as well. Even Erica helped with a little with all of this. He waved his hand to encompass the white lights hanging from the surrounding trees. "How did you get her to keep that secret?" she asked as she stood. "With a lot of raised eyebrows and fingers across my lips for the last few days. Good thing it wasn't longer, or I don't think she could have done it." Chuckling, he held out his arm to her. "Now, can I interest you in a short walk?" "Of course." Her hand slipped under his elbow, and he pulled her in close, placing his opposite hand over the one on his arm. This felt so right. This woman by his side again made him realize the life he'd been living down in Portland was a shadow of what he was meant to be. Now, for the last part of the plan. They fell into step, and he led the way to the small overlook he discovered soon after arriving on the farm. The clearing gave a view of the ocean that had become his favorite. There was a large flat rock, giving a natural place to sit facing the water. "Richard," Brian breathed out his name as they came up beside the bench. "This is beautiful. I never knew this was here." "I think it was pretty overgrown when we were kids. I didn't remember it either. It's become my favorite spot on the farm. Would you like to sit?" His heart rate increased as his nerves kicked in. She gave a quick nod of her head. He placed a hand on either side of her waist and helped her hop up on the rock. He stepped forward, hand still on her waist. He wanted to kiss her, but there was more to be done first. Twilight was falling, and he knew it would be dark soon. The beacon from the Haven light blinked on and began pulsing as it made its rotation, keeping sailors safe even now. He didn't sit beside her, but sank to one knee, taking her hand in his. Her gasp made him hesitate, but only for a moment. His heart raced as he took a deep breath and began to speak. Ryan, I never planned on falling in love when I came to Haven. I was just here to settle my uncle's affairs and sell Saltwater Orchard. But then I saw you again, and I fell in love with you and with the farm. I can't imagine living here without you and Erica by my side. So please, will you do me the honor of becoming my wife and marrying me? He held his breath as he waited for her to respond. Lord, please let her say yes. Tears fell from her eyes as she reached out a hand to cup his cheek. Richard, you've shown me what it means to be loved, and I know Erica adores you. Yes, yes, it would be an honor to be your wife. Richard gave out a whoop as he jumped to his feet. He pulled her into his arms. You've made me the happiest man alive. I promise to love you both forever. He pulled back enough to smile at her, but he couldn't wait any longer. Threading his hands into her hair, he lowered his head to claim her lips. As their lips met, he knew he'd never spoken truer words. He wasn't sure it was possible to be any happier than he was at this moment. Chapter 26, Ryan and Richard, 5 months later. Lifting shaking hands to her head, Ryan tried to twist her hair the way she wanted. Instead, the curl flopped into her eyes. This is hopeless, she wailed. It was going to look like she'd just rolled out of bed. Why was her hair not cooperating today, of all days? A gentle tap at the door had her hurrying towards it. Pulling it open, she spied Brenda and cried, Help! Grabbing Brenda's hand, she pulled her inside and shut the door. Mommy can't get her hair the way she wants it, Erica said from the chair where she sat gently swinging her legs. I'm getting a daddy today. It was all the little girl could focus on for the last few weeks. I know, sweetie. You're one lucky little girl. Brenda smiled at her and turned back to Ryan. Sit and let me see what I can do. She collapsed into a chair in front of one of the lighted mirrors. She couldn't believe her marriage would be the first at the new wedding venue. When she'd been planning the renovations with Richard all those months ago, she'd never imagined she'd be here today, almost ready to walk down the aisle. But first, she needed to get her hair to behave. Are you excited? Brenda picked up the curling iron Ryan had been trying to use, but she usually wore her hair in a high ponytail. Curling it was not something she did regularly, and it was showing. Me or Erica? She asked with a grin. That girl hasn't talked of anything else since she found out. She has a right to be happy. She's never known the love of an earthly father, and I have an idea that Richard is going to love her well. And you too, sweetie. I'm so happy for you. Brenda leaned down for a quick hug. Almost done. She watched as Brenda worked magic on her hair. In just a few moments, soft curls framed her face, and the rest of her hair hung in waves down her back. There. With a quick spritz of hairspray, the older woman set all the items down. Now, stand up so I can really see you. Rising to her feet, she felt a little awkward under the attention. She didn't normally put this much effort into her looks, but today was special. She wanted to knock Richard off his feet. Not literally, but if she could get him a little tongue-tied, she'd count it as a win. Where did you find such a perfect dress? Brenda asked. Would you believe me if I said Martin's? Ryan laughed. They had a shipment from a bridal store the day before I went shopping, and I found this. She wore a simple cream-colored sheath dress that ended just below her knees. She hadn't wanted to wear white since this was her second marriage. Considering she found the dress at the main bargain outlet, it fit her style well. The V-neck neckline showed off a blue sea glass necklace she picked up in a little store downtown earlier in the week. It was her something new and something blue. While it was a little cooler now that fall was approaching, the long-sleeve chiffon lace jacket gave her the illusion of warmth at least. Mommy, you're beautiful. Erica ran to give her a hug. So are you, princess. Ryan had found a simple dress as well for her daughter at the same store. It had taken all her persuasion to make the little girl leave it hanging in the closet until today. Her daughter had wanted to wear it everywhere as soon as they'd arrived home with it 4 weeks ago. There was a light knock on the door. Who is it? Ryan called. Pastor Peter. Come in, she said as she smoothed the skirt, nerves beginning to rise. The pastor opened the door and stepped in. You look beautiful, Ryan. Are you almost ready for the prayer moment Richard wanted? I am. How are we going to do this so we don't see each other? He's adamant he doesn't want to see me until I'm walking down the aisle toward him. We have it figured out. If you'll follow me. He poked his head back out the door before opening it fully. The coast is clear. This way. She had been surprised when Richard asked to have this moment added to the pre-ceremony part of the day. He wanted to pray with her before they said their vows. Even now, a smile covered her face. This husband-to-be of hers was a definite keeper. Wait here, please, with your back, right here at the corner. Erica, you stand on the other side of your mom so Richard can't see either of you, but he can reach your mom's hand, okay? The little girl nodded and did as she was told. Brenda had faded away when they'd left the changing room. She closed her eyes and prayed while she waited for Richard. God had blessed her abundantly over the last few months. Who would have thought that almost a year ago now she had been homeless and living out of her car, hidden in this very barn? Strong fingers slipped into hers, and her heart rate bumped up. Hello, beautiful, Richard said from the other side of the wall. Please tell me you can't see me. Her free hand took her daughter's, and she squeezed, while trying to hold back a giggle. Not a thing. Pastor Peter made sure of it. He blindfolded me. He laughed, and she joined in. Quieting, Richard's deep voice began to pray. She closed her eyes and squeezed his hand. She was beyond blessed today. The Lord had been good to her. Richard couldn't believe he'd been so wrong. When he'd proposed to Ryan, he'd thought it was the happiest day of his life. Nope. Today was far exceeding that. He stood in front of the mirror and adjusted his bow tie. It wouldn't lay flat. He was glad he'd asked to pray with Ryan and Erica before the ceremony, but now he was even more eager to begin. There was a light tap on the door. Come! Abigail's head poked around the door. Need a hand? I'd love one, maybe two. He smiled as the older woman entered the room. Without her help, he wasn't sure he would be here today. Here, let me. She began to adjust the tie. Abigail, thank you for all you did to get us here. That girl just needed a little push. The rest was up to you. She smiled up at him as she worked. There, you're all ready to go. He turned to look in the mirror. The barn had turned out just as Ryan had envisioned. Drew had worked twice as hard to get it done, so it would be ready for them today. The transformation of the stalls into changing rooms, lounge areas, and bathrooms was complete. The prep kitchen was perfect, and it was only right that the Three Cats Cafe was catering the event. Ryan planned to continue working part-time at the cafe, but she would also be the new event coordinator here at Saltwater Orchard. He was excited to work next to her as they continued to grow the business. He was meeting the estate lawyer as soon as he returned from his honeymoon. The farm was showing a profit. He hoped his uncle would be proud of what he'd done. Abigail placed a hand on his arm. Your uncle would love what you've done here at the farm. His eyes flew to hers. Are you a mind reader? How did you know I was thinking about him? I expect the location had a lot to do with that. He would be proud of you, Richard. I'm sure of it. He felt himself choke up at the thought. Making his uncle proud meant a lot to him, and he was excited to see where he could take the farm, especially now that Ryan would be helping him. It's almost time. I think you'd better get yourself out there. Abigail gave him a nudge forward. Right. Time. It's time. Right. She laughed. Maybe you should take a minute to be sure you can think clearly. Although it won't last, the moment you see Ryan walking towards you, I'm going to wager you won't be able to remember your name, let alone hers. And with that, Abigail laughed again as she walked out the door. Right. Pull it together, Mosley. It's time to get this done. Taking a deep breath, he squared his shoulders and tossed up one last prayer. Lord, make me a man worthy of her. Bless our marriage. Bless our life together. Pulling the door open, he stepped out. He could hear the murmur of voices from just outside the back door. The fall day was perfect, just warm enough that it was comfortable being outside, yet the crisp note of the approaching cooler weather was in the air. They'd just finished the apple harvest, the first harvest since Richard had taken over the farm, and it had been amazing. The apple crop was abundant. They would have their first fall market the weekend after the return from their honeymoon. There were already several vendors lined up, and he had high hopes it would be the start of something they could hold year-round. But now was not the time to be thinking about business. He had much more important matters to attend to. Stepping out the back door, the voices quieted as he made his way down the aisle toward the front. Pastor Peter was standing there, waiting for him and smiling widely. Richard and Ryan had foregone attendance. Erica would join them at the front, and that was all. They would become a family today, and he was eager to get started. Right on time, Peter murmured to him. Turning, the pastor nodded to someone standing off to the side. Music filled the air. White lights were strung among the trees all around them, casting a glow over everything. Richard had worked hard installing the sound system 2 days ago. It was the last piece of making this a venue where people would want to have their wedding. "Here she comes," Peter spoke in his ear. His eyes lifted, and he saw Erica skipping down the aisle toward him. "We're getting married today," she yelled. "I'm getting a daddy." Laughter burst from him as his new daughter launched herself into his arms. "You're beautiful, little one," he said, squeezing her in a tight hug. "Wait until you see Mommy. She looks like a princess." He kissed his daughter, he liked the sound of that, on the forehead, before setting her on her feet beside him. Looking up, he was sure his heart stopped when he saw Ryan waiting to walk down the aisle. Swallowing hard, he realized Abigail had been right once again. He couldn't have said what his name was if his life depended on it, but it didn't matter, because he knew what was important. He was marrying this beautiful woman, making her way towards him. They were becoming a family, and he knew he was home.